Now to the battle for 2020. A new Fox News poll is further solidifying a new trend in the race. As Joe Biden holds on to the lead with 31%, Elizabeth Warren jumps up to second in yet another poll, this with 20% support. And the average in the latest 2020 Democratic presidential polls by Real Clear Politics now puts Warren second in the race, slightly ahead of Bernie Sanders. Joining me now is Democratic strategist Antoine C. Wright, former senior advisor to Hillary Clinton's campaign in South Carolina, and attorney and conservative radio talk show host Chandelle Summer. Antoine, let's start with you. Warren keeps surging in these polls, so do you think she has a clear path to the nomination? And does this spell bad news for fellow progressive Bernie Sanders' chances?
Well, I think it would be malpractice for me to give the premature benediction to this race. What we do know is there is a lot of ball left to be played. What we also know is the vice president still has remained steady and has remained his coalition of the most decisive voting bloc in this party, African-American voters. What we do know is the most important state in this race, South Carolina, still seems to be a stronghold for Joe Biden. But we also see Elizabeth Warren not only breaking from the pack as it relates to Bernie Sanders, who she and him have a clear message, but she's starting to put some separation for herself and her campaign between some of the other, what most people would consider stronger candidates like Senator Harris, like Mayor Pete, and some others who were making some early headways and headlines. And so it's yet to be determined. I think this race will shape up to be a battle of who we are as Democrats on the idea of whether we're going to be this progressive party or whether we're going to maintain our center-left status.
Antoine, what do you think is the dynamic with Biden dropping and Warren inching up? What's behind that dynamic?
Well, I don't know if you can, there's one particular thing. What I do know is there are many people who are taking shots at Joe Biden because he is the front runner. And we also know is that Elizabeth Warren has yet to be defined in this race. And so when you are just running offense and no one is trying to define you on defense, that makes a difference. But the fact that Biden has still, in spite of all the attacks, in spite of the negative energy coming from the left and the right, that he still remained his front-runner status says a lot about his candidacy and what people think he can do in a general election.
And President Trump, he seemingly took notice of Warren's rise during his rally in New Hampshire Thursday. Let's take a listen.
Elizabeth Warren, I did the Pocahontas thing. I hit her really hard, and it looked like she was down and out, but that was too long ago. I should have waited, but don't worry. We will revive it. It can be revived. It can be right?
Chandelle, is this tough talk a sign that the president views Warren as a threat?
Warren is a threat. Warren is a threat because Biden's popularity is largely a result of this nostalgia that the Democratic Party has for the Obama years. But Joe Biden has indicated during the campaign that he's really not as sharp as Elizabeth Warren. She is very much the policy wonk. She's quick with the details, and she always has an answer for everything. The problem with Elizabeth Warren is she has an image of being a very liberal socialist, which will not play well, I don't believe, in the general electorate. But honestly, she was originally considered a moderate conservative back in the 70s and the 80s when she was a law professor at the University of Houston. So if she can bring back that conservative genre that she had once, she may be able to capture that Biden element that really is craving a more conservative candidate.
Can I say one thing? Can I say one thing to follow up to that? First of all, I thank God that Democratic voters will not be taking cues from my dear friend on the other side, Chandelle, who I have so much affection for because we do this every Saturday morning. The second thing is your president, or our president, Donald Trump, you're comparing Joe Biden and you want to talk about sharpness? I would take Joe Biden's sharpness over Donald Trump's sharpness any day of the week. And if Joe Biden wasn't a real threat to the GOP and to the Republicans, guess what, my dear friends? You would not have the President of the United States and the Republican National Committee doing everything they can to try to undermine and put water on his candidacy.
Okay, Antoine, I want to expound on that a little bit because the president is saying he's going to revive his Pocahontas attacks. And this strategy is a little worn out and grown tired, or could he actually hurt Warren by bringing this back in?
The one thing we've seen consistently, when Donald Trump goes on the attack, that means that Democratic voters push back. And so I think when he does this, it helps Warren, but I also think it's a bigger strategy for Donald Trump and the Republicans because they do not want to run against a Joe Biden-type candidacy. What we've seen consistently is that Republicans feel he's the deepest threat or the biggest threat to Trump's presidency. Our senator here in South Carolina, who we hope to defeat next year, Lindsey Graham, said in the town hall meeting here in the state just the other day that the biggest threat to Donald Trump is Joe Biden in a Joe Biden in a 2020 general election. That's no secret.
Well, the biggest threat could also be Elizabeth Warren here in Chandelle. I'd like to get your take on this. How do you feel about President Trump bringing back this Pocahontas thing? Do you think he should drop it, let it go, or is this going to be an effective measure for him?
I don't think you're going to see him drop it. I think you're going to see him doubling down on it and trying to suggest that she falsified her credentials to get into Harvard Law School. I believe that's where she went. That has resonated with the American voters. They constantly refer to her as Pocahontas. And Trump has a way of nicknaming his opponents very effectively. And he is a gut street fighting politician. He is not an Ivy League academic in politics. That's why he beat Hillary Clinton, because everyone else plays it safe, but he goes for the jugular. So if the difference is Elizabeth Warren has the ability to do that as well. I've been impressed with the way she takes on her opponents. And, you know, she is, like I said, very sharp. I think she goes head to head with Trump, and you may see a Warren victory.
And I want to take a look at this new poll because this new Fox poll shows that President Trump, he's losing head-to-head matchups against Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, and Elizabeth Warren. So, Chandelle, the president's support nearly identical in every case. So is this cause for concern for his campaign?
No, not at all. It's 15 months before the election. Hillary Clinton, you will recall, was polling very well right before the 2016 election. And it's a far more complicated dynamic with the Electoral College. And who knows where those polls came from, first of all. But the fact is you have a solid 38%, 40% that is not going to deviate from Trump. It's who shows up on election day that's really more important. It's getting out the vote. It's how dedicated your supporters are. Democrats are kind of flaky in terms of showing up at the polls. The millennials don't show up. A lot of people have to be motivated to show up. So if Democrats can put together a coalition, they may win. But right now, you've got strong support for Trump, and that hasn't changed. It's consistent.
Chandelle, let me remind you of a few things. This election is totally different than the 2016 election. I worked the 2016 election. I can tell you the difference. One, people know who Trump is as a person who will govern this country, and people are scared pissless about that idea. That's number one. Number two, his track record in doing things that he promised along the campaign trail in 2016 has not come to pass, and that's why you saw Democrats in 2018 take over the Congress, win races that we did not expect to win otherwise, and you're going to see that trend continue in 2020. Healthcare is still the dominant issue. The economy is falling apart for the working class in this country. You name every quality of life issues, and we all can point to the failures of Donald Trump and the Republican Party, and not to mention there's right-wing racial rhetoric.
You have Bill Maher calling for a recession.
I let you filibuster and ramble for a second, so let me finish my thought. You have this president who's trying to make this a racial issue, and the fact of the matter is you have 4 million people who did not vote in the last election who look like me, who I am quite certain understand the urgency of this election that will be at the ballot box this time around.
We definitely have a passionate discussion going here. Antoine Seawright, Chandelle Summer, I so appreciate you guys being here on this Saturday. Let's keep the conversation going. Great to have you both.
Thank you, Dara.